Welcome to my channel USA Hope and Heart. Today's story will touch your heart, open your eyes, and remind you that kindness can change destinies in ways we never expect. So sit back, feel every moment, and let the story unfold. The night was colder than any night the city had seen in years. Snowfall thickened the streets, burying cars, silencing traffic, and covering every rooftop with a white weight that made the world look frozen in place. Streetlights flickered as if even they were struggling to stay awake. And inside the tall glass tower of Silverwind Corporation, the CEO, Alexander Grant, stood alone in his office, finishing work that never seemed to end. He was a man known for power, known for wealth, known for decisions that shaped industries. But almost no one knew how heavy his heart had become over the past few years, after losing his wife, after drowning himself in work, and after forgetting what compassion even felt like. But tonight, something was going to change. Something he could never have expected. Just as Alexander closed his laptop, he heard a faint knock on the office door. Not firm, not confident, more like a tired whisper turned into a sound. He frowned, wondering who could still be in the building this late. "Come in," he said. The door cracked open slowly, and a little girl, no more than 6 or 7, peeked inside. She wore an oversized red coat, torn at the sleeves, clearly not made for the severity of the snowstorm outside. Her small boots were wet. Her hair stuck to her forehead from melted snow. And her eyes, big, brown, trembling, held fear deeper than anything Alexander had seen in a long time. "Sir," her voice quivered as she stepped inside. "Sir, my mom didn't come home last night." Alexander froze. The girl looked around as if trying to find safety in a place that wasn't built for children at all. "What's your name?" Alexander asked gently, slowly kneeling to her height. "Lila," she whispered. "And why are you here so late, Lila?" She swallowed hard. "My mom works here, in the night cleaning shift. She always comes home before the snow starts. But yesterday, she didn't come back home. I waited, and then the storm came. I got scared. I came here to look for her." Her coat slipped off one shoulder as she clutched a small backpack in both hands. She wasn't crying, maybe because she'd been crying all night already. Alexander felt something inside him shift. Her mother, night cleaning staff. That meant she worked in the same building, his building. He hadn't seen her, but there were hundreds of employees he never met. "Do you know where your mom was working last?" he asked softly. "Yes, basement storage floor. She said she had to clean it before the inspection." Lila's voice cracked. Can you take me to her? Please." Alexander had run a multi-billion-dollar empire. He had negotiated with ruthless businessmen. He had survived scandals, market crashes, even grief. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for the way that small, pleading voice broke something inside him. "Yes, Lila," he finally said, standing up. "I'll take you. Let's find your mom together." She reached out and grabbed his hand without hesitation. Her tiny fingers were ice cold. He squeezed gently, and for the first time in years, Alexander felt like he was holding something human again. They walked through the empty building, lights buzzing faintly overhead. The elevator hummed as it carried them down toward the basement. Lila shivered, so Alexander removed his expensive black coat and wrapped it around her. It swallowed her entirely, but she held it close as if it were the only warm thing left in the world. When the doors opened, the hallway was pitch dark. Alexander flicked the lights on. The basement smelled of cleaning supplies and dust. Buckets and mops stood against the walls. The inspection checklist hung crookedly on the door. Everything looked normal, but cold. Abandoned. "Mom," Lila called out, her voice echoing. But the only reply was silence. They checked room after room. Storage, maintenance, laundry, nothing. No footprints, no sign of movement. Alexander felt anxiety creeping into his chest. He wasn't used to fear, but now he felt it. "Sir," Lila whispered suddenly, "my mom said she uses the back exit when it snows. Maybe she slipped, or fell." Her voice cracked, but she refused to cry. "We'll check," Alexander said firmly. He took her upstairs, through the empty lobby, and toward the rear emergency exit. The closer they got, the colder the air became. When he pushed the door open, snow blew inside violently, slapping against their faces. They stepped into the blizzard. Wind howled. Snowflakes stung like needles. Visibility was nearly zero. "Stay close," Alexander said, picking her up into his arms. Her small hands clung to his shirt as he forced his way through the drifts, scanning every direction. Then, he spotted something. Footprints, but only one set, leading away from the door. They followed them slowly until the snow covered them completely. Alexander almost gave up when a faint shape appeared in the distance, half buried, unmoving. "Mom!" Lila screamed. Alexander ran. He slipped, struggled, but didn't stop until he reached the body lying in the snow. A woman. Frozen hands. Pale lips. Eyes closed. Lila reached out trembling fingers. "Mom! Mom, please wake up!" Alexander knelt beside her and pressed 2 fingers against her neck. There was a pulse. Faint, weak, but real. "She's alive," he said sharply. "Lila, she's alive." Tears finally burst from the girl's eyes. Not of sadness, but fragile, desperate hope. Alexander lifted the woman carefully into his arms. She was freezing, her body stiff from the cold, and he could hardly believe she had survived the night. He rushed back through the storm, holding her tightly while Lila ran beside him. Inside the lobby, he shouted for help. Security guards rushed over. Paramedics were called. The lobby turned into chaos, but life-saving chaos. Within minutes, her mother was lying on a stretcher, wrapped in heating blankets, oxygen mask over her face. Lila held her hand as paramedics wheeled her out. Alexander followed them all the way to the ambulance, refusing to leave. Hours later, at the hospital, after emergency treatment and warm IV fluids, the doctor finally walked out with a tired smile. "She's stable. Hypothermia, dehydration, but she's going to make it." Lila burst into relieved sobs, hugging the doctor, then hugging Alexander next. "Thank you," she whispered into his shirt. He placed a gentle hand on her back. "You were brave, Lila. You saved her." "No," she sniffed. "You came with me. Nobody else would have listened to me this late." Alexander felt a lump in his throat. He realized something painful. If she had come any other night, he might not have listened either. He might have been too busy, too distracted, too cold. But not tonight. When her mother woke hours later, her eyes fluttered open weakly. She looked at Lila, then at Alexander, confusion filling her expression. "You, sir, why are you here?" Alexander pulled a chair beside her bed, his voice softer than he'd spoken in years. "You didn't come home. Lila came to find you." She was terrified. "I wasn't going to ignore that." The woman blinked, tears forming. "I slipped on the ice at the back exit. I tried to get up but everything went dark. I thought I wouldn't see her again." Lila hugged her tightly, careful of the IVs. "Mom, don't leave me again," she whispered. Alexander exhaled slowly. This family had almost been destroyed, and he realized he had been part of the problem. Understaffed shifts, poor lighting at the back exits, no safety checks for night employees. His company had failed her, and that realization cut deeper than he expected. "Miss," he said gently, "what is your name?" "Elena," she replied weakly. "Elena," he said, "as of today, you're no longer a night cleaner. You're being promoted. A daytime administrative position, higher salary, full benefits, safe environment." Elena stared at him, stunned. "Sir, why would you do that?" "Because you work hard," he said. "Because your daughter deserves to have you come home safe. And because I should have ensured your safety a long time ago." Elena began crying quietly. Lila reached for Alexander's hand once more. "Thank you," she whispered again, her small voice wrapping around his heart. Over the next few days, Alexander visited them regularly. He brought warm meals, arranged transportation, made sure Elena had everything she needed to recover. And Lila, who had walked into his office as a frightened child, now greeted him each day with a shy smile that somehow made him feel more human. One evening, as snow continued to fall softly outside the hospital window, Lila asked him, "Sir, do you have anyone who waits for you to come home?" Alexander froze. He hadn't expected that question. "No," he said quietly. "Not anymore." Lila nodded slowly, not fully understanding, but sensing the sadness behind his words. She reached out and held his hand again. "You can sit with us," she said softly. "If you want." It was such a simple offer. Such a small gesture, but it felt like the warmest thing he had been given in years. So he sat with them, listening to Elena talk about her dreams, listening to Lila explain her favorite cartoons, feeling, for the first time in forever, like he wasn't just a CEO, but a person who mattered to someone. When Elena was finally discharged from the hospital, Alexander personally drove them home. Lila hugged him one last time before heading inside, whispering into his coat. "You helped us in the storm, you're not alone anymore." And somehow, he believed her. That night, standing outside their small apartment, Watching the lights turn on, Alexander realized that one frightened little girl had done what no board meeting, no financial success, no achievement ever could. She had reminded him that kindness creates warmth even in the coldest storms. And sometimes, the people who appear in your life unexpectedly are the ones who save you, just as much as you save them. This is USA Hope and Heart, where every story reminds us that compassion still lives in this world. Like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional and cinematic stories.